This is the Raising Carter podcast, and I am your host, Ramon Weatherall Sr. And the Raising Carter podcast is a podcast dedicated to you, fathers, dedicated to you, dad, because we want to show you just how important you are to your sons. It's a podcast for fathers with sons. No disrespect to the daughters, but this podcast is for all the fathers and the sons because your involvement in their lives is so important. And I want to ask you a question. What is your definition of the word failure? And how do you envision how do you view failure? Not envision, I'm sorry. How do you view failure? Especially when it comes to your son. Because the way you envision failure has a direct effect on him. And the reason why all this came up and the reason why I'm doing this podcast because it's the NBA playoff time and my team, the Milwaukee Bucks, got eliminated from the playoffs. I was about to say finals, but because that's what our mindset was. We were going to the finals, but we didn't. We went home. We gone fishing. But Giannis was asked a question at the end, at the end of his season. Did he think that this season was a failure? And a lot of people didn't like his answer. A lot of people thought his season was a failure, but I didn't. And I loved his answer. And I think you, as a father, you might not like his answer either, but it's an answer and it's a viewpoint about failure that you should let your son hear. So I want you to check out this.
God. Okay, because I'm not that up. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay. Do you get the promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, I don't know, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success. And if you've never, no, I don't want to make it personal. So
Let me stop it right there. He was about to say, I think he was about to say, someone who's never done anything like this because you haven't. You're just a reporter. I don't care if you follow that team or any team. You're still not a player. You're still not the best player in the NBA. You have no idea what it takes in order to win a championship. Only one team can win a championship. So I give him props for not really being going personal with this guy and saying something like that because people are already on him about saying his season wasn't a failure. And if he would have basically attacked this guy personally, he would have never heard the end of it. So good way to, check yourself.
there's always steps to it. You know, um, Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championship. The other 9 years was a failure. That's what you're telling me. I'm asking you a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why you asking me that question?
He
It's a wrong
dropped the
question.
mic on that one. He should have just walked away after that because there's no way that this guy would have ever asked Michael Jordan did he think his season was a failure because he wouldn't dare do that. But he has a great point. Jordan played for 15 years. 9 of those years, he didn't win a championship. He didn't come close to one. A lot of those years, a lot of those early years. But now all you talk about is him being the best player ever. Ever. And he won 6 championships, which might not ever be repeated. I don't, but are you calling him a failure? You wouldn't dare call him a failure. But he didn't win a championship half the times he played. So we got to get this failure thing in check.
There's no failure in sports. You know, there's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Some other people's gonna win. And this year somebody else is gonna win.
Exactly.
Simple as that. We're gonna come back next year, try to be
You
better,
don't
try to
always
build
win.
good habits, try to play better, not have a 10-day stretch with playing bad basketball. You know, and hopefully we can win a championship. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021 that we didn't win a championship, it was 50 years of failures. No, it was not. It was steps to it, you know, and we were able to win one. Hopefully we can win another one. You know, sorry that I didn't want to make it personal.
He makes he I mean, I love what he said. I love what he said. I mean, there's nobody more upset than us Bucks fans that they're not in the finals. But you got to keep it real. You have to keep it. You have to keep it. You have to keep it real. All these people that's saying that he's wrong and that was a cop out and what what this season was. No, it wasn't a failure. The definition of failure is lack of success. They didn't have any success this year. They just lost in the playoffs. And failing isn't the worst thing in the world because you learn if you learn from failure. And you're not a failure if you competed. He competed. He went out there hurt and still gave it all he had. The Miami Heat was just better. So if someone is better than you, you're a failure. Is that what we're saying now? If someone's better than you, you're a failure. You only can be the best all the time. There's a great book by Tim Grover called Winner or Winning, one of the two. And Tim Grover was Michael Jordan's trainer and Kobe Bryant's trainer. But the one thing he said about winning is once you win, you go back down to the bottom and you have to do it again. And basically what he's saying is that winning is hard. It's hard. It's the hardest thing that you'll ever do. And winning at that level, at the NBA level, most of us would never understand what it takes to do that. So saying that his season and the Bucks' whole season was a failure is a bit much. It's a stretch. Okay? You need to, so fathers, we need to really watch what we're saying to our sons and let them know if you gave it all you had, that's all you can do. But I want to see what one of the greatest of all times. I want you to hear what one of the greatest of all time has to say about failure.
How did you become one of those people who doesn't seem to be afraid of failing?
It doesn't exist. It's not existent. What the hell does that mean? Seriously, what does failure mean? It doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination. What does it mean?
You're pulling a Jedi mind trick on me right now. I was like, does it exist?
No, I'm serious. Look, I'm trying to think, how can I explain it? So, let's use happy endings, right? And then we can relate this to failure, why it's not existent. Everybody talks about, everybody wants a happy ending, right? Now let's go to the reality of it, right? Let's look at a fairy tale story. Let's look at Snow White. Mm-hmm. She gets a happy ending. She finds Prince, whatever. She goes on. She lives happily ever after. Well, I call bullshit on that because 2 months later, the fact is they had an argument and he's sleeping on the couch. Right? So the point is, the story continues. The story continues. So if you fail on Monday, the only way it's a failure on Monday is if you decide to not progress from that, right? So to me, that's why failure is not existent. Because, if I fail today, okay, I'm going to learn something from that failure, and I'm going to try again on Tuesday. And I fail, and I'm going to try again on Wednesday.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying. It's only considered failure is if you stop trying to progress. If you quit. If he quits, if he comes out next year and he plays worse and he hangs his head because they lost the year before and he wants to go to another team, yeah, it's a failure. Yeah, it's a failure and he's a failure. But if he takes what he learned from this year and never lets that happen again and keeps moving forward and keeps trying to get better, which I fully expect him to do, it's not a failure. And for all the people that think that this season was a failure and that in the way that he answered the question was wrong, it was a cop out. They didn't ask you that question, Nick, right? They didn't ask you that question, Stephen A. Smith or Shaq or Kendrick Perkins. They asked him. They asked the best player in the world. They asked the leader of the Bucks organization, basically. Um, the guy with a team on his back. So he couldn't answer the question like a fan. He couldn't answer the question like a reporter. He had to answer the question like a leader. He had to answer the question like a leader. That's how. So that's why his answer was so good, because he answered it like a leader. He answered it like a guy who wanted to win more championships with the team that he's on. So all the fathers out there, whatever, we can have the difference of opinion, but I would definitely let my son watch that interview and to let him know that failure is a part of life. And the only way that you are a failure is if you quit. Is if you quit and you don't try to get better in the future. And that's when you can consider yourself a failure, or whatever you've done a failure. So that's the episode for this week. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank everybody for supporting the Raising Karter podcast. The next episode, we're going to have my superstar special co-host, not special guest, my superstar co-host, and we're going to talk about failure. What does it mean to your son? We're going to hear it from a 6-year-old. What does he think failure is, and how he interprets that? So stick around, check out episodes 1, 2, and this is episode number 3 of the Raising Karter podcast, and we will see you next time for episode number 4. Peace.